Storm over Warlock by Andre Norton, Chapter 15. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by R.J. Davis. Storm over Warlock by Andre Norton, Chapter 15, Dragon Slayer. Aye! Sheer defiance not only of the beast he fronted, but of the wyverns as well, brought that old rallying cry to his lips, the call used on the dumps of Tyre to summon gang aid against outsiders. Forktail now crouched again for a spring, but that throat-cracking blast appeared to startle him. Shan, blade ready, took a dancing step to the right. The thing was scaled, perhaps as well armored against frontal attack as was the shell creature he had fought with the aid of the wolverine. He wished he had the Terran animals now, with Taggy and his mate to tease and feint about the monster, as they had done with the Throng hound, for he would have a better chance, if only the animals were here. Those eyes, red-pitted eyes in a gargoyle head, following his every movement. Perhaps those were the only vulnerable ports. Muscles tense beneath that scaled hide. The Terran readied himself for a sideways leap, his knife hand raised to rake at those eyes, a brown shape with a V of lighter fur banding its back crossed the far range of Shan's vision. He could not believe what he saw, not even when a snarling animal, slavering with rage, came at a lumbering gallop to stand beside him, a second animal on its heels. Uttering his own battle cry, Taggy attacked. The fork-tailed head swung, imitating the movements of the wolverines as it had earlier mimicked the swaying of the disc in the wyvern's hand. Togi came in from the other side. They might have been hounds keeping a bull in play, and never had they shown such perfect teamwork, almost as if they could sense what Shan desired of them. The fork-tail lashed viciously, a formidable weapon, bone, muscles, scaled flesh, half buried in the sand, swept up a cloud of grit into the face of the man and the animals. Shan fell back, pawing with his free hand at his eyes. The wolverines circled warily, trying for the attack they favored, the spring to the shoulder, the usually fatal assault on the spine behind the neck. But the armored head of the forktail, swung low, warned them off. Again the tail lashed, and this time Taggy was caught and hurled across the beach. Togi uttered a challenge, made a reckless dash, and raked down the length of the forktail's body, fastening on that tail, weighing it to earth with her poundage while the sea creature fought to dislodge her. Shan, his eyes watering from the sand, but able to see, watched that battle for a long second, judging that Forktail was completely engaged in trying to free his best weapon from the grip of the wolverine. The latter clawed and bit with a fury, which suggested Togi intended to immobilize that weapon by tearing it to shreds. Forktail wrenched its body, striving to reach its tormentor with fangs or clawed feet, and in that struggle to achieve an impossible position, his head slewed far about, uncovering the unprotected area behind the skull base, which usually lay under the spiny collar about its shoulders. Shan went in. With one hand he gripped the edge of that collar, his serrations tearing his flesh, and at the same time he drove his knife blade deep into the soft underfolds, ripping on towards the spinal column. The blade nicked against bone as the forktail's head slammed back, catching Shan's hand and knife together in a trap. The Terran was jerked from his feet, flung to one side with the force of the beast's reaction. Blood spurted up, his own blood mingled with that of the monster. Only Togi's riding of the tail prevented Shan's being beaten to death. The armored snout pointed skyward as the creature ground the sharp edge of its collar down on Terran's arm. Shan, frantic with pain, drove his free fist into one of those eyes. Forktail jerked convulsively. His head snapped down again, and Shan was free. The Terran drew himself back, keeping his feet with an effort. Forktail was writhing, churning up the sand in a cloud, but it could not rid himself of the knife Shan had planted with all his strength, and which the blows of his own armored collar were now driving deeper and deeper into its back. It howled thinly, with an abnormal shrilling. Shan, nursing his bleeding forearm against his chest, rolled free from the waves of sand it threw about, bringing up against one of the rock pillars. With that to steady him, he somehow found his feet and stood weaving, trying to see through the rain of dust. The convulsions which churned up that concealing cloud were growing more feeble. Then Shan heard the triumphant squall from Togi, saw her brown body still on the torn tail just above the forking. The wolverine used her claws to hitch her way up the spine of the sea monster, heading for the mountain of blood spouting from behind the head. Forktail fought to raise that head once more. Then the massive jaw thudded into the sand, teeth snapping fruitlessly as a flood of grit overrode the tongue, packed into the gaping mouth. How long had it taken, that frenzy of battle on the blood-stained beach? Shan could have set no limit in clock-ruled time. He pressed his wounded arm tighter to him, lurched past the still twitching sea thing to that splotch of brown fur on the sand. Shaping the wolverine's whistle with dry lips, Togi was still busy with the kill, but Taggi lay where that murderer's tail had thrown him. Shan fell on his knees, as the beach round him developed a curious tendency to sway. He put his good hand to the ruffled back fur of the motionless wolverine. Taggi? A slight quiver answered. Shan tried awkwardly to raise the animal's head with his own hand. As far as he could see, there were no open wounds, but there might be broken bones, internal injuries he did not have the skill to heal. Taggi, he called again, striving to bring that heavy head up on his knee. The furred one is not dead. For a moment Shan was not aware that those words had formed in his mind, had not been heard by his ears. He looked up, eyes blazing at the wyvern coming toward him in a graceful glide across the crimson sand. And in a space of heartbeats his thrust of anger cooled into a stubborn enmity. "No thanks to you," he said deliberately aloud. If the wyvern witch wanted to understand him, let her make the effort. He did not try to touch her thoughts with his. Taggi stirred again, and Shan glanced down quickly. The wolverine gasped, opened his eyes, shook his miniature bare head, scattering pellets of sand. He sniffed at a dollop of blood. The dark, alien blood splattered on Shan's breeches. And then his head came up with a reassuring alertness as he looked to where his mate was still worrying the now quiet forked tail. With an effort, Taggi got to his feet. Shan aided him. The man ran his hand down over ribs, seeking any broken bones. Taggi growled a warning once when that examination brought pain in its wake, but Shan could detect no real damage. As might a cat, the wolverine must have met the shock of that whip-tail stroke relaxed enough to escape serious injury. Taggi had been knocked out, but now he was able to navigate again. He pulled free from Shan's grip, lumbering across the sand to the kill. Someone else was crossing that strip of beach, passing the wyvern as if he did not see them. Thorvald came directly to Shan. A few seconds later, he had the torn arm stretched across his own bent knee, examining the still bleeding hurt. "That's a nasty one," he commented. Shan heard